Clark in. To tip it off versus Leroy. Hicks to Clark's right. Bogan to her left. That tip controlled by Kelly. Kelly gets it to Kaminsky. Kaminsky all the way on the far corner. Bounce pass underneath and getting it back on the far side. That tipped by Leroy, trying to grab it, Kaminsky. That flipped ahead. Here comes Turman. Turman quickly down on the near wing. Turman gets it back to DeWolf. DeWolf into the paint. DeWolf kicks it on the far side to Hicks. Hicks shot just a little high. Clark with the rebound. Coming down the way, Kaminsky being watched by Hicks. Gets it ahead to Bustle. Bustle working away from the other side to the far side. She bounce passes over underneath to Leroy. Leroy kicks it back at the arc to Bustle. Bustle centered up, top of the key. Moves on the far side to Peters. Peters gets to the free throw line. Over to Leroy, who puts it up. And Turman grabs the rebound. Turman coming down the far side. Sends it ahead. Underneath to Clark. Clark puts it up and puts it in. 6:57 left to go in this first quarter. Pioneer up 2-0. Bustle brings it up the court over center. Bustle on the far wing. Dribbles into the paint. Bounce pass over to Leroy on the far side. Leroy gets it back out to Kaminsky. That moved over on the near side to Peters. Peters works her way around the arc. That tipped away as trying to get it back. Bogan tipped it all the way back into the deep backcourt. Now Kaminsky brings it over center with the big block. Red M. Kaminsky comes in the near side, gets it to Peters. Peters with his shot from the wing. That tipped back to the three-point line. Peters trying to bring it in, taken away by Clark, and jump ball called. 6:15 left to go here in the first period, first quarter. Pioneer up 2-0. DeWolf brings it up the near sideline. Bustle watching her. DeWolf gets over center. DeWolf on the far wing to Turman. Turman gets it to Bogan. Bogan back to Turman. Turman with the three-pointer, and she hits it from the top of the key. Turman makes it 5-0 Pioneer. 5:55 left to go here in the first quarter. Kaminsky trying to get over half court. Now she comes over on the near sideline as Hicks all over her. That underneath to Leroy. Leroy puts it up, won't come down. Kelly puts it up. Wouldn't go down, but a foul called. Kelly goes to the line to shoot two. 5:38 left to go here in the first quarter. Pioneer up 5-0. Kelly bends her knees, puts it up, bounces off the back of the rim and in. Pioneer 5, Monroe 1. One more shot coming for Kelly. Kelly toes up the line, bends the knees, dribbles it a few times, puts it up, puts it in. Pioneer 5, Monroe 2. DeWolf brings it up the near sideline, ahead to Hicks. Hicks on the near wing. Hicks dribbles down along the baseline. Hicks trying to get it over to Turman. That went off of a Trojan. So ball to Pioneer. Hicks will inbound right in front of the Monroe bench. She gets it to DeWolf. DeWolf on the near wing. DeWolf gets it to Bogan on the far wing. Along the far sideline, Turman. Turman gets it centered up to Clark. Clark, top of the key. Clark picked up her dribble, needs a little help. Gets it underneath to DeWolf. DeWolf puts it up, and it rolls around. Will not fall. Another shot underneath. That by Clark. That wouldn't go down. Excuse me, that was Turman. Turman going to the line. Turman puts it up and bounces off the side of the rim. Pioneer 5, Monroe 2, 5:03 left to go in the first quarter. One more shot coming. Turman puts it up, puts it in. Pioneer 6, Monroe 2. That inbounded. Peters has it along her own baseline, gets it to Kaminsky. Kaminsky sending up. Pioneer with full court pressure. That handed off to Kaminsky. Kaminsky comes underneath the basket, gets it to Peters on the near wing. Peters gets it to Bustle. Bustle up above the three-point line, works her way around. Bounce pass over to Kaminsky on the far sideline. Now Leroy trying to get it into the paint to Kelly. Bogan tips that away. going to be Pioneer ball. 4:40 left to go here in the first quarter. Pioneer 6, Monroe 2. DeWolf brings it up the near sideline. Bustle watching her. She kicks it on the far wing to Turman. Turman gets it to Bogan on the far sideline. Underneath on the baseline, Turman bounces it underneath to Clark. Clark has that tipped away. Kelly with the Bustle with the rebound. Bustle coming up court. Bustle moves it to Leroy. Back to Bustle. Bustle on the near sideline right in front of the Pioneer bench. Now she works her way around the arc. Bounce pass on the far sideline. Over to Leroy. Leroy into the paint. Puts it off the glass. Won't fall. Turman with the rebound. Turman ahead to Hicks. Hicks over center court. Hicks gets it to DeWolf. Bounce pass underneath to Clark, who puts it up and in. 3:53 left to go. Here in the first quarter, Pioneer 8, Monroe 2. Bustle brings it up along the near sideline. Long cross court pass over to Peters. Peters back to Bustle. Bustle just inside center court. That went off of DeWolf's foot. Out of bounds. Could have been a kicked ball, but out of bounds off of DeWolf as she slid to get it in. So Kaminsky will inbound it right in front of the Pioneer fans. Just on the far side in the back court. Gets it to Bustle. Bustle works her way over the big red block M. Brines watching her. That put underneath, trying to put it up. And that is going to be called a foul as Paul Lickey traveling. It's Paul Lickey busted for traveling. That at 3:23. Pioneer 8 and Monroe 2. DeWolf brings it over center. DeWolf into the near corner. Gets it to Brines. Brines stop the key. Brines moves it over to Stewart. Stewart gets it to Bogan along the far sideline. Back to Stewart. That just off of her hands as she went to make a cut, and Bogan had already had the ball in the air, and just a little miscommunication. Turnover over to the Trojans. 3:23 left to go here in the first quarter. Pioneer up 8-2. Bustle. Bounce pass over on the far sideline. That tipped away as Troughton had it. Knocked away and secured. Over to Stewart. Stewart just inside the arc. That knocked away from her. Tracked down by Turman. Turman over to Brines. Brines to DeWolf. DeWolf into the paint. Kicks it back to Bogan for 3. That bounces off the rim. Off the back and the front of the rim. Tracked down by Peters. Peters double team. Heads the other direction. Peters over to Bustle. Bustle coming down the far sideline. Brines picks her up at half court. That's sent along the far sideline to Troughton. Troughton down the baseline trying to tip it over to Paul Lickey. That out of bounds. It's going to stay with Monroe as they're going to inbound underneath their own basket. As that bounce pass over to Paul Lickey. Paul Lickey over to Bustle. Bustle being watched by Hicks. Gets it to Troughton. Troughton on the far wing. Troughton, that's handed off. Spinning with it, Bustle. Bustle passes it. That up over to Troughton. Troughton at the free throw line. Comes in. Foul called. Hicks takes her first foul. 2:25 left to go here in the first quarter. Pioneer 8, Monroe 2. Troughton at the line. Puts up the first, and nothing but net. Pioneer 8, Monroe 3. Dombrowski in for Pioneer, as well as Brines, Clark, Hicks, and Stewart. Troughton at the line. Kelly out there for Monroe, as well as Kaminsky, Peters, and Paul Lickey. Hits the second, and now Pioneer 8 and Monroe 4. Bringing the ball up court is Hicks. Hicks gets it to Stewart on the far wing. Over to Brines along the far sideline. Brines dribbles, gets it to Clark. Clark top of the key. Clark picks up her dribble, gets it to Stewart on the near wing. Stewart dribbling out. Gets it over to Dombrowski. Dombrowski underneath on the baseline, and then that's sent all the way out to Brines, who puts up a three-pointer. Will not fall. Hicks battling for the rebound. That I thought out of bounds, but no call. That tip back. Dombrowski puts it up. That off of the backboard. Tracked down by Peters. Peters has that tipped away by Clark. And out of bounds. 1 minute, 47 seconds left to go for Nedick. Pace on that last possession. Pioneer with the 8-4 lead. Inbounded, baseline right. Bringing it down is Kamitsky. Kamitsky comes to the near side. Puts it on the far sideline for Trouton. Trouton is bumped. So it's a foul on Stewart. Non-shooting foul. So inbounded. That high up to Kamitsky. Kamitsky, free throw line. Passes over on the near side. Shot! And they hit it. As that was Bryce with the shot. Stewart brings it up court. Gets it to Hicks. Hicks underneath to Clark. Clark triple team. Back to Hicks at the top of the key. Hicks gets it over to Dombrowski. Dombrowski moves it back to Hicks as the defense rotating. That over to Stewart. Stewart puts it up and in. Oh, Clark found a cutting Stewart along the baseline. Stewart makes it 10-7. Pioneer. Kamitsky brings it up court. Comes to the near sideline. Now flips over to the far sideline. Gets it to Trouton. Trouton in the far corner. Trouton with Dombrowski on her. That move back to Kamitsky. Kamitsky back to Trouton for three. Trouton, that off of the back of the rim. Tracked down by Hicks. Hicks heads the other direction over center court. Hicks quickly ahead to Bryce. Little too far. Bryce got it deep underneath the basket and tried to kick it back before she went out of bounds. That basket off to Monroe. 55.6 seconds left to go here in the first. Inbound baseline right now. Kamitsky brings it down the court. Kamitsky over the block M. Bryce on her. Kamitsky flips back to the far side. Gets it to Trouton. Trouton on the far sideline at the three-point line on the wing. Back to Bryce. Bryce top the key. Over to Trouton. Trouton trying to go down baseline. Puts it up. That grabbed as it didn't hit anything and grabbed by Hicks. Hicks quickly up to Stewart. Stewart on the far wing. Back to Hicks. Hicks underneath to Clark. Clark trying to put it up. Contact made. And jump. Well, Stewart grabbed the ball. They're calling a hold. Called a foul on Stewart. I thought she got all ball, but the officials have a much better view than I do. Kamitsky brings it up. Kamitsky dribbles to her left and now her right, coming down the far sideline. Kamitsky gets it to Bryce. Now Leroy back to Kamitsky. Kamitsky shoots a 15-footer. That off the back of the rim, coming inside. Trouton and traveling called on Trouton. 4.8 seconds left to go. Here in the first quarter, Pioneer up 10-7. Stewart to inbound, baseline left. On the O of Monroe. She rolls it down to Hicks, half court. Hicks comes up to the three-point line. Back to Stewart. Stewart puts up a long three-pointer, and she hits it! She hits it! That was about a 25 to 30-foot three-pointer from deep in the wing, and Stewart nails it. Pioneer up 13-7. Bryce to inbound. Along that far sideline, gets it to Kamitsky. Kamitsky over center. Kamitsky stops, dribbles to her right. Bogan watching her. Gets it to Bryce on the near sideline. Bryce works her way around the arc to the top of the key. Over to Trouton on the far wing. Trouton has Turman watching her. Handing off to Bryce. Bryce bounce pass over to Leroy. Leroy underneath the basket. That tipped away by DeWolf. DeWolf getting her hand in the passing lane. Monroe will inbound underneath their own basket. Trouton to inbound. Trouton bounce passes it. That put up by Bryce and grabbed by Clark. Good rebound by Clark. Coming up, DeWolf. DeWolf gets it to Hicks on the near wing. Hicks bounces it to Turman. Turman works her way underneath, trying to get it to Bogan. That tipped away by Trouton. DeWolf gets it up and in. DeWolf with the 7-footer. Makes it Pioneer 15 and Monroe 7. Kamitsky gets it over to Trouton on the far wing. Underneath to Leroy, back to Trouton for three. Trouton off the front of the rim. Battle for it right at the free throw line. Clark comes away with it over to DeWolf. DeWolf coming down the near sideline, over center. DeWolf right at the top of the key. DeWolf moves down the far wing to Hicks. Hicks over to Turman. Turman underneath to Clark, back to Turman. Turman on that far wing. Bounce pass over to Clark. Over to Hicks, underneath to DeWolf. DeWolf going for the layup and contact made. Foul called. Troughton gets the foul. Second foul on Monroe. 4 for Pioneer. Pioneer 15. Trojans 7. DeWolf puts it up and sinks the first free throw. 16-7, Pioneer lead. DeWolf with one more shot coming. Peters and Bustle in for Monroe. Coming in for Pioneer, Spizak. The second one will not fall. Pioneer 16, Monroe 7. Kamitsky with the rebound. Kamitsky comes down the near sideline over center court. Bogan watching her. Kamitsky dribbles onto the near wing. Gets it to Peters. Peters bounce pass underneath in the paint. Trying to get that to Pawlicki. As a whistle blown, Pawlicki will go to the line to shoot 2. Turman picks up the foul. Pawlicki at the line, bends her knees, puts it up, puts it in. Pioneer 16, Trojans 8. One more shot coming for Pawlicki. 6:39 left to go before half. That put up and put in by Pawlicki. Pioneer with the 7-point lead. DeWolf brings it up court over center. Gets it over on the far side to Bogan. Bogan had Bustle all over her. Bogan on the baseline. Gets it over to DeWolf. DeWolf to Turman. Top of the key. Turman works her way over. Hands it off to Hicks. Hicks back over to DeWolf on the far wing. DeWolf dribbles out along the far sideline. Back to Turman in the far wing. Back to DeWolf. Trying to get underneath. Back to Turman now. Baseline. Puts up the layup and puts it in. Good ball movement by Pioneer. DeWolf finding Turman on one side of the baseline to the other. Quickly up ahead. Pioneer 18. And Monroe 9. Peters with a long three-pointer. That off the back of the rim. Tipped. And now go out of bounds. It'll be Pioneer ball with 5:58 left to go before halftime. Pioneer 18. Monroe 9. Turman to inbound the ball on the far sideline. Stewart coming in. Stewart will replace Hicks. Give Hicks a breather. She gets a nice round of applause as she heads to the bench. DeWolf has it, inbounded. DeWolf, top of the key, now moves over on the near wing. DeWolf gets it to Stewart on the far wing. Stewart gets it back, gets it to DeWolf on the near wing. Passes it to Turman. Turman over to Bogan. Bogan works her way around the arc. Back to DeWolf. DeWolf to the free throw line. Back to Bogan on the far wing. Bogan moves it over to Stewart. Stewart to DeWolf. DeWolf into the paint. DeWolf puts it up with the left hand and hits it. Oh, she rolled it up and it sat on that rim for half a second before it decided to fall. That makes it Pioneer 20, Monroe 9, 5:21 left to go here before half. As Kamitsky has it along the far side, gets it to Leroy. Back to Bustle. Bustle moves it to Peters. Peters to Kamitsky, centered up. On the far wing, Bustle trying to work her way down. Underneath, right on the paint, that's put up and in by Leroy. If I recall, that's their first points from not being a free throw. Pioneer 20, Monroe 11, 4:51 left to go before halftime. DeWolf has it on the near wing. DeWolf to Stewart, top of the key, over to Bogan on the far wing. Bogan back to Stewart, top of the key, back to DeWolf on the near wing. DeWolf into the paint, kicks it out to Bogan. Bogan trying to get into the paint, contact made, puts it up. Would not fall, but a foul. So foul called on Monroe. Not a shooting foul, so Pioneer will inbound from the far sideline. Well, now they're trying to figure it out. Now they'll inbound from the baseline. 4:36 left to go. DeWolf underneath her own basket, looking to inbound. She triggers the inbound out to Bogan. Bogan, top of the key. Bogan with Kamitsky on top of her. Bogan dribbles, looking for a space to go. Dribbles short right around the arc. Now kicks it over to Stewart. Stewart gets it to Rollins. That over to Clark on the baseline. Over to Rollins. There's Bogan at the near wing. Bogan puts it up from the free throw line. Sinks a 15-footer. That makes it Pioneer 22 and Monroe 11. 4:12 left to go. Here before half. Bustle brings it up court. DeWolf watching her. Bustle over center court. Bustle has it knocked away by DeWolf. DeWolf goes down, puts up, and would not fall, but the rebound by Rollins. Rollins kicks out to Bogan. Bogan moves it over to DeWolf on the near wing. That kicked over to Clark, top of the key. Clark makes a move, getting it over to Stewart. Whistle. "30-second timeout. We'll take it with them and play a little push on. 3:47 left to go. 3:47 left to go here before half. As the ball to Monroe, Bustle brings it up court. Bustle loses it, gets it back as Brines watching her. Over to Leroy. Leroy on the far wing, hands it back off to Bustle. Bustle into the paint, puts it up, that over the rim. Loose ball, Leroy gets it. Tied up, jump ball. As Rollins got a hand on it underneath. Possession arrow to Pioneer as Rollins will inbound. Baseline left. Inbounds to Hicks. Hicks brings it up. Over center court. Hicks on the near sideline. Moves it over to Rollins. Rollins over to Brines. Brines on the far wing. Brines gets it back to Clark. Clark moves it over to Hicks. Hicks works her way around the arc into the paint. Hicks puts it up. Contact made. Blocking foul on Kelly. Hicks will go to the line. 3:11 left to go before halftime. Pioneer up 22-11. Hicks first one up and in. Pioneer 23, Monroe 11. One more coming for Hicks as she toes the line. Gets the ball. Dribbles it. Eyes the rim, puts it up, puts it in. 24, Pioneer 11, Monroe. Bustle brings it up court, over center. Brines watching her. Bustle, bounce pass in along the far sideline. Gets it over underneath the Bustle. She puts it underneath the basket. That pulled away by Clark. Jump ball. And she was tied up by a number of Monroe players. That's going to possession arrow. Is Monroe's ball. As Peters will inbound underneath the basket. Peters inbounds that, put up by Kelly, off the rim. The rebound tracked down by Clark. Clark ahead to Hicks. Hicks over center, gets it to Stewart. Stewart into the paint, trying to bounce pass it over to Rollins. Troughton got in the way. Out of bounds. That is going to be Pioneer ball. Inbounded to Stewart. Stewart for three. Stewart, that bounced off the side of the rim. Stewart gets the rebound. Stewart working away around the three-point line. Puts it underneath to Clark. Clark puts it up and puts it in. 2:37 left to go. Pioneer 26, Monroe 11. Bustle brings it up court. Bustle, top of the key, moves it over on the far wing to Troughton. Troughton trying to get a screen from Kelly. Troughton backs up right on the edge of the big block. Red M tipped away by Stewart, and they'll be over and back. Monroe Pioneer has the ball. Stewart inbound on the far sideline. She gets it into Hicks. Hicks over center court. Hicks coming down to her right. Over to Stewart on the far sideline. Brines works her way, top of the key, over to Rollins. Rollins moves it to Brines on the far wing. Over along the far sideline, Stewart has it. Stewart looking for a place to go with it. One dribble, back to Clark. Clark top of the key. Clark bounce pass over to Brines. Brines on the near wing. Brines dribbles to her right, hands it off to Hicks. Hicks at the free throw line, puts it up. That one a little too strong, bounced off the back of the rim. The rebound pulled down by Peters and then intercepted, stolen away by Rollins. Ahead to Hicks. Hicks bounce pass underneath to Clark. That tipped away. Grabbed and then an interception by Hicks. That pulled away by Monroe. So the ball changed possessions quite a few times the last few moments. Bustle putting up a 15-foot shot from the far sideline, and she hits it. Pioneer 26, Monroe 13. Rollins hands off to Hicks. Hicks on the near wing. Gets it to Stewart. Stewart works her way. Gets it to Brines on the far wing. Over to Rollins on the far sideline. Rollins. Back to Brines, top of the key. Brines hands it off to Hicks. Hicks, top of the key. Hicks works her way to her left. Hicks. Long cross-court pass over to Stewart. Stewart to Brines. Brines thought about it. Now gets it to Rollins. Rollins over to Hicks. Underneath to Clark. Clark on the edge of the paint. Clark gets up, puts up a shot, and hits it. Clark from the paint sinks it. 45 seconds left before halftime. Pioneer 28, Monroe 13. Bussell brings it up court. Brines watching her. Bussell hands off to Trouton. Gets it back on the near side of the paint. Whistle and a travel. That'll go Pioneers' way. 34 seconds left to go before halftime. Rollins to inbound. Baseline left. Pioneer 28. Monroe 13. Hicks bringing it up. The near sideline. She goes over center court. Hicks on the near wing. Gets it over to Rollins on the far wing. Now Brines on the far sideline. Gets it back to Clark, top of the key. Clark calling out signals. Clark gets it to Stewart on the near wing. Stewart dribbles to her left. Stewart, long cross pass over to Brines on the far sideline. Brines works her way around the arc. Brines moves it to Rollins. Rollins, top of the key. Rollins over to Stewart on the far sideline. Stewart back to Brines. 6 seconds left. Gets it to Hicks. Hicks into the paint. Hicks, that off the rim, and then there's a long shot by Bussell. That into the student stands. So Hicks will inbound. Far sideline. She'll get it to DeWolf. DeWolf over center. DeWolf has Bussell watching her. Moves it over to Bogan. Bogan over to Turman on the near wing. Turman into the near corner is DeWolf. DeWolf gets a screen from Clark. Stops side of the paint. Puts up a 15-footer. That rolls off. Grabbed down by Kelly. Kelly gives it to Kamitsky. Kamitsky over center. Kamitsky heads towards the near side. Over to Bussell on the near wing. Bussell bounce pass over to Kelly. Then gets it back. Bussell just the side of the paint shot. That bounced wide. And ahead, Clark with the rebound. Ahead to Bussell. Bussell over midcourt. Bussell gets it to Turman on the far wing. Over to Hicks. That knocked out of bounds by Leroy. That ball will stay. Pioneer ball. 7:20 left to go in the third. Pioneer up 28-13. They're going to inbound underneath their own basket. Pioneer going from left to right in this half. Hicks gets it to Turman on the far wing. Turman into the paint. Bounce pass along the baseline to Clark. That went off of the underneath side of the glass. Grabbed by Kelly. Kelly over to Kamitsky. Kamitsky over center court. Kamitsky on the far sideline to Peters. Gets it back. Kamitsky back to Peters on the far sideline. She works her way to the free throw line. Over to Kamitsky. Kamitsky on the near wing. Gets it over on the near sideline to Bussell. Bussell over to Peters. Peters gets it over to Kamitsky on the far corner. Underneath to Leroy. Leroy's shot just wide. Rebounded by Clark. Over to DeWolf. DeWolf coming down the near sideline over center. DeWolf puts on speed. Gets down to the baseline. Then kicks out to Turman on the near wing. Turman underneath to Clark. Clark with two people on her, gets it back to Turman in the near corner. Turman works her way around the arc, gets it over to Hicks. Hicks comes underneath the basket, puts it up. That won't fall, but tracked down by Turman on the far sideline. Turman over to Bogan, top of the key, over to Hicks. Moves it to DeWolf, coming down the baseline. DeWolf over. Turman for three. That off the front of the rim comes and collected by Kamitsky. Kamitsky over center court, being watched by DeWolf. Kamitsky turns around her dribbles, working her way around the arc. Bounce pass over to Kelly. Kelly over to Bussell. Bussell for three. That off the back of the rim. Rebound Leroy. Leroy puts it up. That rims out. Rebound Turman. That over to DeWolf. The shots just will not fall for Monroe. As trying to kick it back, Hicks went to get back to DeWolf. DeWolf wasn't expecting it, and that went out of bounds. Now go over to Monroe. 5:50 left to go here in the third. Pioneer up 28-13. Stewart looking to come in. Stewart will replace Hicks, as Hicks will get a breather. Inbounded to Kamitsky. Kamitsky right at the block M. Goes over on the far side. Bogan watching her. Gets it to Bussell. Bussell on the far wing. Underneath to Leroy. Leroy trying to work into the paint. Spins. Puts it up. That rims around and down. 5:35 left to go here in the third. Pioneer 28. The Trojans 15. DeWolf brings it up the far sideline over center. Calling out signals. She gets it to Turman. Turman over to Bogan on the near wing. Bogan looking to her left. Sees DeWolf. Now DeWolf cuts towards the basket. Bogan dribbles her way to the right, over to Stewart. Stewart over to Turman. Turman bounces it underneath to Clark. Clark with a nice job on a hook shot from underneath. Hits it, and it's Pioneer 30 and Monroe 15, 5:03 left to go in the third. Kamitsky brings it over center. Kamitsky over to Bustle on the near wing. Bustle working her way around the arc. Gets it underneath to Kelly. Kelly back to Bustle. Bustle just stops shy of the paint. Shot that rims out. Over to Bogan. Bogan over center. Bogan gets it to DeWolf. DeWolf underneath to Clark. Clark quickly double team, trying to move it over to Stewart. Stewart puts it up and in, and one. 4:38 left to go here in the third. As good job by Clark to recognize the double team coming her way. Kamitsky committing the foul. But good recognition by Clark to see the double team coming, move it over to Stewart. Stewart went up, hit that. Pioneer 32, Monroe 15, 4:38 left to go. Stewart at the free throw line as she dribbles, eyes the basket, puts it up, and it will not fall for her. Hit every bit of the rim but none of the twine. Coming up, Kamitsky gets over on the near side to Peters. Peters back to Kamitsky, top of the key. Kamitsky bounce pass underneath to Kelly. Kelly traveled with it. That'll go over to Pioneer. She took a little stutter step before going up, trying to get a little room on Clark. Here comes DeWolf. Coming down the near sideline, calls out signals as she goes over midcourt. Gets it over to Hicks. Hicks on the far wing. Over to Brines. Brines bounces it in the far corner for DeWolf. DeWolf underneath to Clark. Clark triple teamed. Kicks it out to DeWolf. DeWolf puts up a floater and hits it. Oh, the triple team crashed down on Clark. Clark able to get it back out. Good job over to DeWolf, who put a beautiful floater in. Pioneer 34, Monroe 15. As Bustle has it, top of the key, moves it over on the near side to Kamitsky. Kamitsky, baseline underneath. Stewart trying to grab it, coming up with it. Leroy. Leroy goes up and is fouled, going for the shot. Brines has her first foul. 3:09 left to go in the third. Pioneer 34, Monroe 15. And Leroy hits the first. Pioneer now by 18 points. One more basket coming for Leroy as she dribbles it. Eyes the hoop. Puts it up. Puts it in. Pioneer 34, Monroe 17. Hicks brings it up court. Hicks over center. Hicks on the far wing, over to Stewart on the near wing, gets it to Brines. Brines bounce pass over to Hicks in the near corner. Hicks works her way around the arc, gets a good screen by Rollins, kicks it off to Dombrowski. Dombrowski at the free throw line, over to Stewart, back to Hicks in the far corner. Hicks working her way to the free throw line, bounce pass underneath the Brines. Brines double teamed. That's going to stay Pioneer ball as Kamitsky knocked it out of her hands. As Monroe is doing a really good job crashing down, double teaming anyone in that low paint. Inbounded by Hicks, gets it to Brines, top of the key. Brines dribbles to her right, gets it back to Hicks on that far wing. Hicks, bounce pass over Dombrowski now on the near wing. Stewart dribbles to her right, long pass over to Brines. Brines, top of the key. Brines back to Stewart. Stewart over to Hicks. Hicks into the paint, trying to split a triple team, and they call a jump ball. As the Monroe fans wanted traveling, the Pioneer fans wanted a foul, and nobody's happy with it, and I guess that means it went right. So, 2:55 left to go in the third. Pioneer 34, Monroe 17. Monroe to inbound, baseline left. Peters gets it to Bustle. Bustle bringing it up court down the far sideline. Bustle over center court, gets to her right, bounce pass over to Peters. Peters, baseline, that goes off of Hicks' foot, out of bounds. That'll stay Monroe ball with 2:43 left to go in the third. Pioneer with the 17-point lead. Bustle has it on the near wing. Over on the far wing to Trouton. There's a three-pointer shot off the rim. Out of bounds and over to Pioneers. Peters took a three-pointer. Would not fall for her. Timeout called, and we'll take it with them. How about a little push on? You're listening to Pioneer Women's Varsity Basketball. Stewart inbounds baseline right. Gets it to Bogan. Bogan comes up court. Pioneer 34, Monroe 17, 2:31 left to go here in the third. Over to Stewart on the near wing. Dombrowski has it on the near sideline. Over to Rollins, top of the key. Rollins underneath the Bryce. Bryce puts it up and in. Oh, good feed by Rollins. Great cut by Bryans. Get right underneath the basket. No hesitation to let the defense come over. Puts it up and in. The basket into the paint. Putting that up. Travel, the call against Monroe. The ball back to Pioneer. Pioneer 36, Monroe 17. 2:07 left to go. As Bogan brings the ball up here in the third period. Bogan has Bustle watching her. Bogan moves it over to Stewart. Stewart gets it to Dombrowski on the near wing. Dombrowski trying to get it underneath the Bogan. Bustle skied for it, knocking it out of bounds. Pioneer will. They are saying it's Monroe ball. They had a different view than I did on that one. As Bustle brings it up court. Bustle, right at the top of the key, moves it to Peters. Peters on the far wing. Peters calling out signals. Gets it over to Bryce. Bryce back to Peters. Peters along the near sideline. They call a push. They call that on Felicia Stewart. 1 minute, 36 seconds left to go in the third. Inbounded to Bryce. Bryce loses the ball out of bounds. That goes to Pioneer. As coming in is Spisak. Bogan brings it up court. Bogan over center court. Dombrowski to her left. Bogan hands it off to Brines. Brines on the far wing. Over to Dombrowski. Dombrowski works her way to her left. Back to Brines. Brines over to Stewart. Stewart on the near sideline. Stewart takes a half step. Now gets it back to Brines. Top of the key. Brines over to Bogan. Bogan dribbles to her right. Into the paint. Bogan puts it up. Foul called. Contact made. Bogans will go to the line with 1 minute, 10 seconds left. Pawlicki gets the foul. Bogan shooting 2. Pioneer 36. Trojans 17. Bogan puts it up. Bounces off the back of the rim. She gets one more. Kamitsky comes back in for Monroe. Bogan dribbles. Puts it up. Puts it in. Makes it an even 20-point game. 1 minute, 10 seconds left to go in the third. Kamitsky brings it up court. Kamitsky over center, being watched by Bryans. Kamitsky goes to the far wing. Bounce pass on the far sideline, trying to get it underneath. That put up by Trouton. Bounces off the rim. Stewart with the rebound. Stewart heading up court. Stewart over center. Stewart to the free throw line. Over to Bryans on the near wing. Back over to Bogan. That tipped away by Kamitsky. Grabbed by Bryans. Bryans gets it back to Bogan. Bogan over center. Bogan looks to her right, now to her left, switches positions, hands it off to Bryans. Bryans top of the key. Bryans gets Peters on top of her. Over to Bogan on the near wing. Bogan kicks it to Dombrowski, top of the key. Dombrowski over to Stewart. Stewart on the far wing. Stewart looking for a cutting Bogan. Bogan underneath the basket. Bounce passes back to Stewart on the far wing. Stewart dribbling off. Looks for a screen from Spisak. Calling out signals. Stewart gets into the paint, puts up a floater, rolls around and down. Stewart driving the lane, puts it in. 3 seconds left to go in the third. Kamitsky brings it up and cannot get a shot off Pioneer. With the 22-point lead, Dombrowski, Bryans, Spisak, Bogan, and Stewart out for Pioneer. Bryans to inbound quickly over to Bogan. Bogan brings it over center. Bogan gets it to Dombrowski. Dombrowski over to Stewart on the near wing. Stewart dribbles to her right. Top of the key, over to Brines on the far wing. Brines over to Dombrowski. Dombrowski looks for a place to go. Dribbles to her left. Gets it back to Stewart. Stewart, crossover dribble, trying to get some room into the paint. Double teamed. They're going to call a hold as she's helped up. Good sportsmanship. Both Bustle and Spisak helping her up. I always love good sportsmanship. Troughton takes the foul. That is the third foul on Monroe for this half. They're going to bring back in Leroy, their center. Bogan underneath their own basket. Bogan gets it to Stewart. Stewart into the paint. Stewart puts it up. Will not fall, but a whistle. Kamitsky gets a blocking foul. It's the fourth foul. Stewart will go and shoot two. Stewart dribbles at the line. Puts it up. Puts it in. That makes it 40-17 Pioneers. 7:35 left to go. Stewart with one more. Spins the ball, looks up, eyes it, puts it up, puts it in. 41 for Pioneer, 17 for Monroe. Timeout called by Pioneer. We'll take it with them. You're listening to Pioneer Women's Varsity Basketball, brought to you by Arbor Broadcasting. Arbor Broadcasting at gmail.com. That's Arbor Broadcasting at gmail.com. As Pioneer with the 24-point lead. Kamitsky brings it up court starting the fourth quarter. Kamitsky in the far corner over to Bustle. Bustle bounce pass underneath to Leroy. Leroy trying to get it over to Pawlicki. That grab by Spisak and coming up is Bogan. Bogan over center. Bogan over to Dombrowski. Dombrowski travel on Pioneer. That'll go back to Monroe. 7:13 left to go here in this fourth quarter. SEC red battle here between Pioneer and Monroe. Kamitsky brings it over center court. Kamitsky dribbles to her right, now to her left. Kamitsky on the far wing. Over to Bryce. Bryce underneath to Leroy. Back to Kamitsky. Kamitsky at the free throw line. Puts it up. Puts it in. 6:55 left to go here in the fourth. Pioneer 41. Monroe 14. 19, excuse me. Thank you. 22-point lead. Brines takes it, top of the key. Brines has Bustle on top of her. Gets it to Stewart on the far wing. Stewart on the far sideline to Dombrowski. Dombrowski loses it. Gets it back. Battle for it. Down on the ground. Jump ball. Possession arrow pointing to Monroe. It is. 6:34 left to go in the fourth. Kamitsky brings it up the far sideline. Pioneer by 22 points. Kamitsky over center. Kamitsky dribbles to her left. Brines watching her. Now Bustle has it on the far wing. Bounce pass underneath. That put up. Short shot. Coming the other direction with it. Here comes Bogan. Bogan into the paint. Bogan puts it up. Will not fall. Rollins trying to get the rebound. That tipped out of her hands. Now the officials conferring. Rollins will inbound it underneath your own basket. Baseline left. Bogan coming up to help. That over to Dombrowski. Snyder watching her. Dombrowski top of the key. Over to Brines. Brines over to center. Gets it over to Bogan. Bryce trying to steal that one away. Bogan calling out signals. Gets it back to Brines. Brines gets it to Dombrowski. Dombrowski back to Bogan. Bustle trying to steal that. Bogan has it. Bogan over to Rollins. Rollins over to Brines on the far wing. Brines has Kamitsky on her. Back to Bogan. Bogan calling out signals. She gets people assigned the way she wants. Now she dribbles. Gets it back to Dombrowski. Dombrowski moves it over to Rollins. Rollins over to Brines. Brines on the near sideline. Gets it underneath to Rollins. Rollins having to save it. Kicks it back, and Kamitsky inbounds it. Bustle underneath the basket. Puts it up. Will not fall. Bogan with the rebound. Leroy gets her first foul of the game. Pioneer to inbound underneath. Baseline right. Pioneer 41, Monroe 19, 5:17 left to go here in the fourth. Bogan brings it over center. Bogan looks at Dombrowski to her left, now passes over to Brines on the far wing. Brines, top of the key. Brines has it tipped away and over and back called. as Dombrowski had to chase on the other side of center. That'll go over to Monroe. Bustle to inbound. Bustle inbounds it to Kaminsky. Kaminsky comes up court. Kaminsky has Dombrowski watching her. That kicked off. 3-point for Troughton. That will not fall. Leroy got it underneath. She got fouled as she went up for the basket. I think that's going to be on Rollins. Nope, that was a foul on Clark. That is Clark's first foul, the team's third foul. So the Trojans with 5 fouls, Pioneer with 3, 4:54 left to go. Bogan comes out of the game, or at least she comes over to talk to Coach. She's just discussing things with Coach. Spizak with the foul. They'll change that. Leroy steps to the line, dribbles, puts it up, puts it in. Giving the Trojans an even 20. They haven't put it up on the board yet. There we go. Just makes me worried. Leroy with another one coming, puts it up, puts it in. 20-point lead for Pioneer. Pioneer 41, Monroe 21. Bogan brings it over center. Calling out signals. Gets it to Brines on the near wing. Brines over to Rollins. Rollins on the near sideline. Rollins back to Brines. Top of the key. That went just tipped off of her fingertips coming the other direction. Bustle. On the outside of the paint. Gets it back to Kaminsky. Top of the key over to Bustle. In the near wing. That she tried to bounce pass. Went off of Rollins' foot. That will be out of bounds. Monroe ball. As Cisney inbounds it, that put up by Bustle. No basket, but a foul. Dombrowski takes her first foul. Fourth foul on Pioneer. Bustle at the line, shooting 2. Puts it up. Rims off. She'll get one more. 4:25 left to go here in the fourth. 20-point lead for Pioneer. Turman comes in to check in. So does DeWolf. And she nails the second one. 19-point lead for Pioneer. Rollins to inbound. Brines goes off for a breather. So does Spizak. Rollins inbounds to DeWolf. DeWolf coming up the center of the court. DeWolf over midcourt. Gets it to Dombrowski. Dombrowski over to Turman on the far wing. Turman dribbles to her left. Now trying to get it over to DeWolf. That knocked out of bounds as Bustle tried to sky over DeWolf and knocked the ball out. As DeWolf to Turman to inbound. That over to Bogan. Bogan dribbles up on the far wing, hands off to Turman. Turman, top of the key. Turman hands it off to DeWolf. DeWolf works her way to the right, over to Bogan. Bogan at the free throw line, over to Turman on the near wing. Turman baseline, underneath, over to DeWolf. DeWolf puts it up off the high glass, would not fall. DeWolf with the rebound, knocked out of her hands, gets it back, puts it up, puts it in. 3:45 left to go here in the fourth. Pioneer 43, Monroe 22. Bustle passing it to the right-hand side as one of the players cut before, right when the pass was happening, out of bounds over to Pioneer. As Rollins comes out, Bogans comes out for a breather. Turman to inbound, baseline right. Turman over to DeWolf. DeWolf bringing it up court, up the near side. Bustle watches her once she gets over center court. Kicks it to Turman. Turman over to Hicks on the far wing. Hicks back to Turman for 3. That off the front of the rim. Oh, Stewart going to grab it and just trying to avoid the official and went awkwardly out, but that out of bounds over to Monroe. Parkhurst inbound. Over to Bustle. Bustle bringing it up. 3:19 left to go. Pioneer 43. Monroe 22. that ball over to Parkhurst on the near wing. Parkhurst works her way to the top of the key. And over to Sisney. Pass underneath, just a little high, goes off to Pioneer. Turman will inbound, baseline right, gets it to DeWolf. DeWolf working her way up court. DeWolf over center. DeWolf over on the near side to Turman. Turman gets it to Stewart. Stewart has Parkhurst watching her. That moved over to Hicks over on the far wing. That to Stewart. Stewart on the far side puts it up and rims down. 2:42 left to go. Felicia Stewart hits a nice one along the baseline. 45 for Pioneer, 22 for Monroe. And timeout Monroe. 23-point lead, 45 points for Pioneer, 22 for Monroe. As Sisney inbounds. And over to Parkhurst. Parkhurst gets it back to Sisney. That up and in for Schneider. Found Schneider on the baseline. Schneider put it in. Pioneer now with the 21-point lead. That basket underneath to Clark. Clark puts up the hook and sinks it. Pioneer 47. Monroe 24. 2:06 left to go here in the fourth. Parkhurst brings it up, puts it on the far sideline over. Dribbling it down on that far side is Kane. Kane on the far wing. Kane gets it back to Sisney. Over to Parkhurst on the near sideline. Parkhurst on the near wing, working her way around. Gets it back to Kane. Kane on the far sideline, gets the baseline and knocked away by DeWolf. Tied up as Leroy went to grab it. Jump ball. Pioneer has the possession arrow pointed their way. 1 minute, 37 seconds left to go. It's Dombrowski to come in, as well as Brines and Spizak. It's Pioneer emptying the bench. Clark comes out. Trying to make sure they only have five players on. DeWolf bringing it up. Turman inbounded to her. DeWolf coming up the far sideline. Kane watching her. DeWolf at center over to Turman. Turman gets it to Dombrowski on the near wing. Dombrowski has Parkhurst watching her. Over to Spizak. That over to Brines. Brines hands it off to Turman. Turman on the far wing. Turman dribbling has Schneider all over her. Turman loses it out of bounds. Schneider's pressure caused some issues, and that will go over to Monroe with 1 minute and 13 seconds left to go. Sisney to inbound, baseline left, as the last of the starters come out for Pioneer to the bench. Parkhurst brings it up over center. Dombrowski watching her. Parkhurst at the top of the key, over to Kane. Kane on the near wing. Kane underneath to Snyder. Snyder puts it up and puts it in. Snyder with a really nice baseline move. 56 seconds left to go. Pioneer 47. Monroe 26. Pioneer in no hurry. Bogan has it. Bogan over to Brines. Brines on the near wing. Over to Rollins. Rollins on the near sideline. Back to Bogan. Bogan thought about, now dribbles over to the right. Has Kane on top of her. Dombrowski just inside of midcourt. Back to Bogan. Bogan works her way from the far side to the near side. Gets it to Rollins. Snyder trying to steal it away. Now it is stolen away. Coming down the far side. Troughton into the paint. Triple team puts up a hook. Almost hits it. Rollins with the rebound. Rollins gets it to Bogan. 15 seconds left. Pioneer with the 21-point lead. 12 seconds left. Bogan over center. Kane watching her. Bogan dribbles to her left, then her right, crosses over. Bogan is trying to keep that ball. 1 second left to go, and that will do it. Pioneer with the win